Hello and welcome to the Mini Sculpting Super Show Patreon Hangout for June 2018. Right now we've got Andrew here and Kevin. I think Andrew will be doing some digital sculpting and Kevin's working on some traditional as well as myself. And I'm just going to get the official live. Oh, darn it. Hit the wrong button. I need to make sure that everybody else knows we're live. And here we go. Okay. That is not the right stream. That's weird. Oh well, I'll just have to change the name later. I'm very confused now. Okay, that's very weird. It got rid of my other Hangout and replaced it with one named after Andrew for some reason, but we're online, so this is one we'll use. All right. Oh, can't seem to speak. Andrew's having trouble. I don't think I... It doesn't look like I have you muted or anything. Oh.
Does that...
There you... Yeah, there it is.
Oh, okay. Curse of the not plugged in microphone. Yeah, guilty.
All right. Well, today I'm working on something a little bit different. Oh, shoot. Well, hopefully it will be. I had a bunch of this clay mixed up somewhere, but I seem to have misplaced it. Anyways, I'm going to work on a large sculpture today. But unfortunately for me, I don't seem to have my pre-mixed Sculpey Firm, which makes sculpting in this stuff way easier. So I'll be mixing up a little bit of that in the beginning of this Hangout. I try and find my reference image. So what are you working on today, guys?
I'm working on an undead warrior.
Awesome.
Nice. That sounds good. I'm just... No, I don't know. I think I'm doing some flagstones for a floor for a bigger scene. But that's about as far as my mind's going with it.
Cool.
Environment style.
It's always fun to add those to your figures.
Yeah, I've got like a diorama kind of thing in mind, like for a sculpt. So just start from the ground up, really, quite literally.
So I've had this Sculpey Firm for quite some time, so I'm going to use a little of the clay softener conditioner. If anybody's wondering what I'm doing, just helps break it down a little bit. I have got to find, I had a whole huge wad of it already mixed up. I thought it was with the rest of it, but evidently I put it somewhere where I could get to it easily, but I don't know where that is. So this is a figure that I started working on. I got to speak at a friend's class, college class for a school we both used to go to. He's a professor there now. And I was talking about how to build maquettes and whatnot. And so I started this character. Thought I'd try and take it a little farther.
Are you about to do some subtractive?
Excuse me, no. This will pretty much all be additive. There might be a little bit of trimming and everything, but I work on this pretty much the same way I would do a miniature. You know, adding on a little bit at a time, forming it up. There might be a little bit, but I don't do a lot of that. The kind of like build up and then score it down, and that you see with a lot of larger pieces, larger sculptors. I've never been very fond of subtractive. It just hasn't, never really clicked with it. It never felt right. So I've always preferred to try and, add on and manipulate. This has been a pretty crazy summer. Lots going on. I was out for vacation, camping with my kids and in-laws. And then I was like, oh my gosh, it's Hangouts this week as soon as we got back.
Yeah, finding time's been difficult. I have a new baby.
Ah. You getting enough sleep?
She's actually a pretty good sleeper. My wife is taking the hit at the moment, but when she goes back to work, it'll be more of an even split.
Awesome. So a lot of people have asked me about the poly clay I use, and when I'm doing sculpting miniatures, it's usually Fimo. But obviously, you can use Super Sculpey or Sculpey Firm, any other poly clays to do it. But after working in this stuff, it is great, especially for larger things, just because you can get so much of it for a great price. But man, it just has this oily texture, and it's great to sculpt with. But I always feel like I've got some sort of toxic material all over my hands afterwards. I don't feel that way quite as much with Fimo. Not sure why. It might be a little bit because I keep using have to use the conditioner to break it down. So that's probably getting a little more of the material on my hands, but.
The sculpting group that you recommended, the Old Hammer, you see a lot of different polyclays. In particular, you see a lot of bees putty.
Yes, that's becoming quite popular. I'm working on doing a little review of that. Trying to give people my take on it. It's a really good material. It's very nice. There we go. This is always one of the challenges when you're working large as well. You've got to get a lot more material together, and takes a little more preparation to knead it and get it ready to work. I put a little bit more conditioner in this, then we'll be good to go. Kettle.
Hello. How's it going?
Good.
Sweet. How's everybody going?
Grandma, yourself?
Good.
Yeah, pretty good. Pretty good. Really cold at the moment. It's like 10 degrees here.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Whereabouts are you?
Adelaide, South Australia.
Okay. Didn't expect that with the accent, that's all.
Yeah. But I'm from Scotland originally, north of Scotland.
Oh, from Ida. Yeah. I'm from Durham for myself, mate.
All right, cool.
I guess we're both away from home. What are you sculpting?
Goblins. Goblins.
Oh, my favorite.
I've had these guys staring at me for the last couple of weeks. That's not good. Get them finished.
Nice one, nice.
Yeah, what are you working on?
I was just saying I'm trying to do like a kind of diorama thing, so I'm just starting with the flagstones, and then I'm just gonna work up from there.
Oh yeah, cool.
It's not a character, so I feel like I'm cheating a bit.
Good.
You know what? Okay, I'm gonna character it. I'm gonna stop doing flagstones and do characters instead.
You got to do the flagstones sometime.
I know, but goblins are more fun. I broke. Okay.
Kevin, did you do the old hammer sculpting challenge?
I didn't, and again, it was just because of the new kid. I didn't want to commit to anything.
Oh, don't feel bad. I didn't have a new kid, and I failed. But you did it though, Kettle, right?
Yeah.
You did an orc.
Yeah.
Good.
Right here. You can see him. Hello, guy. Yeah, he was trying to be a goblin king, so I thought, oh, I'm a little bit bigger than a goblin. And
Awesome.
the end, like 32 mil. I'm like, oh, that's a pretty big goblin. But yeah, but that was quite good. Like the guy the two top ones they were really nice sculpts. I really like them.
So I must have missed this. So you sound like there's an old hammer sculpting thing going on.
There was last month? It went till I think June 8th and I think they ended up extending it a little further. On the Old Hammer Sculpting group on Facebook, they had a little challenge, and I told everybody about it, and I started it, but I didn't finish it. I am gonna finish it, but obviously it won't be for the contest anymore.
I think it'd be the Facebook thing that stopped.
Yeah. Well, they're gonna do more, and they've done others in the past. So, if you I'm gonna make sure and point it out again when they do the next one, and hopefully try and jump in. But I just it's good to have little incentives like that from time to time, especially if it's something you're interested in.
I think it's good to join just for the community and just seeing the updates on people's sculpts.
Yeah, it's a really great place. A lot of talented sculptors there.
Yeah.
Okay. I was trying to find my reference for this character, but I can't remember when I took the picture. Let's see. One more quick look, then I'll just have to wing it. Yeah, I just don't know where that is.
It's kind of an interesting time halfway through the year to find out if anyone kept up with their sculpting resolutions from the new year. I am struggling a little bit, but you know.
I'm with you, buddy. Adepticon really burnt me out. I didn't expect it to. But that was a lot of a lot of extra, preparation and but getting back on it. I just finished getting another video ready, so that'll be going up shortly.
Is it on this time, or is it on a reveal thing?
What'd you say?
So what's it on, or is it like a reveal thing?
Oh, I don't mind telling you. It's Barbarian boots.
Nice. Have they got straps?
Yes. Okay. Well, this guy is supposed to be a fat little king guy, inspired by this old anime I used to like to watch called Grimm's Fairy Tale Classics. It was on Nickelodeon.
Oh, that was such a creepy show for being a little kid.
Oh yeah, I didn't realize it until because so my wife found a copy of it that somebody was selling, got it for me for my birthday. So we've been rewatching. I'm like, wow, I can't believe some of these episodes, but I loved it. It's one of the main reasons I got into fantasy so much. That and the Hobbit cartoon. I just loved those. But they have a lot of little kings like this where they got these tiny little legs and gigantic bulbous bellies. Thought it'd be fun to make a little statue of that. Okay. Do a little bit more here. So how's everybody else doing on their sculpting resolution halfway through? Fairly regularly? Doing it every day? Falling off the wagon?
Oh, yeah.
Seems like you're on it, Kettle. You always seem to have a pretty steady stream of work. You're
Yeah.
showing off.
Yeah. Mainly because I'm a stay-at-home dad, so got the time at the moment.
Awesome.
Although the wife's going, and going, you could maybe get a part-time job. Oh, don't want to do that.
And I'm sculpting every day, obviously because of work. But there's the time to try and make time to learn something after that.
Mm-hmm.
Really dedicate time to either anatomy or really dedicate time to fabrics and stuff. It's great when it's straightforward, but if you have to learn and it's hard, it's kind of do after a day.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a pity party, so gotta keep going.
Well, it's definitely convention season. Is anybody going to any shows? Doing anything fun like that? Still debating whether or not I'm going to pop up to Gen Con or not this year.
would like to get to Rubicon, but it's bit expensive to get there.
Mm-hmm.
Stuff like that, man.
Yes.
Might be a stupid question, but when's Adepticon on?
That was in March.
Yes, of course it was.
So obviously, yeah, next year. That's a fun show. Man, there seem like there's so many these days popping up, starting to pop up. But I'm not. I know there's a couple others that have a hobby presence, but I might start to try and compile that, and let people know. I know Historicon has a pretty good hobby presence. Not sure how much on sculpting. And I just heard that a little show called Recruits. I was just hearing about that recently, and I know that Joe Ortiza came and taught sculpting there.
Is this is like miniature sculpting displays and tutorials and things like that? Is that something which is commonplace at conventions?
I would say it's. You mean like contests, like for painting contests, but for sculpting instead, or?
No, I mean like sort of where like professional sculptors sit down and they work through sculpting. You get to see what they do and how they address problems and how they address certain things.
I haven't seen it regularly in a long time.
Sort of like a class, I guess,
Yeah, well, the classes there. Yeah, that is here and there. Obviously, a lot of Adepticon, some at Historicon, and I'm sure it's at other shows as well. But the number one place, other than Adepticon, is definitely ReaperCon, just because all of the Reaper sculptors are typically there. But it's a little more difficult than it used to be. But I know then there's things like Lock and Load, I believe, for Privateer Press. I know at least they used to be able to talk to a lot of digital sculptors there. Excuse me. Do you always work in red, Andrew?
Actually, no, I always work in. I just didn't notice. Sorry. So I actually usually work in the Matte Cat Pearl because I get the nice sort of contrast and things to it.
Yeah, I was always like, why did they choose red?
I don't know. That's the thing. I've heard that a lot, and a lot of people say you shouldn't use it because it doesn't show very good contrast, doesn't show surfaces and everything. But I think that in sculpting now, I think so long just jumping into it that everything feels like I've gone a bit blind to it. Because I'm looking for certain things, like certain form and things like that. And I think as soon as I've got it, I move on to something else. So I'm not really looking at it as a whole for the first time. But I know that once you get finished, choosing like a different material really helps because then you see things that you wouldn't have normally seen. Like,
yeah, that's a good point. That's a really neat thing about digital being able to do that.
it's like the flipping it upside down. And like the good thing is, I mean, you've got your mirror for traditional sculpt, so you can see specifically where your asymmetry might be a bit lopsided, and I can just flip it using mirror.
You should maybe think of something pretty cool too, like because you see something or think it might work but then you can kind of show what it might look like in metal and all these different materials.
Yeah, but like again, I find the more like I tart it up to look like something else, the less I'm sort of tempted to rely on the form selling it, you know. It's like doing like a line drawing versus like a fully painted thing, and a lot of people fall in love with how well you render stuff versus the actual form of something, which is why I mostly just prefer grays, so people can see exactly what they get, and you know, and that's it. Because I've had times when a sculpt which is kind of subpar has been saved by the paint on it, or like, you know, the poly paint. But there's no amount of saving if it's just grey. It's either good or it's not, you know. It's kind of dangerous to do that, obviously, like fast and loose when you're in a contract or something, but you know, you want to get better. I'm doing this long enough without reference now. I need to get some reference.
I hear you. I'm feeling a little trepidatious. Oh. Ninja Racer in the chat. Welcome. I'm back on the sculpting wagon. Oops, I gotta move this so I can read it because it's a little too wide. There we go. Working on relearning green stuff and finishing off a female Tau Samurai. Ooh, that's cool. With a shield drone style power glove. And he worked on green stuff hair last night. Some help for my hair tutorial. Awesome.
Yeah.
Adriano sent some emojis. Is it your bedtime? Okay. Let's see. This guy's going to have like a little tunic thing, so I better start building up underneath a bit. Well, maybe not too much. We're all so quiet. I'm not feeling very talkative tonight either. Just enjoying sculpting. But if anybody has a question, feel free to pipe up. A nice time saver for a large sculpt like this. This whole area is all tin foil underneath his belly, so there's actually not nearly as much clay, and that'll actually help it cook a lot easier when I go to bake this in the oven, so it won't have to be as much material to heat up and work through, and less chance of cracking, all sorts of goodness. Oops.
I looked at Fortress Figures as well. I think that's what it was called. Yeah, they look really good, actually.
They do amazing work. Amazing mold makers.
Definitely gonna, when I go towards getting stuff printed, have a look at them.
Awesome. Yeah, they really know their stuff, and they're always researching and finding the best materials to mold with, and They do a lot of mastering for people all over the industry, people and companies you wouldn't even think. Whoops. You might think are doing it all themselves. They're sending to them. Sad to be covering this guy's butt up. It was kind of cool looking.
I'm liking the leg shape. Like, you got really nice silhouette on there.
Thanks. Hopefully I don't ruin it as I add on the details.
Do you ever feel that, because you're working traditionally, do you ever feel that little sort of, risk and no undo button, or is it because you've been doing it so long now, it's like, this is just the way it is?
Nope, that's I do all the time, and that's actually one of the reasons that I love and hate the bulking stage. I love it because I like just making a really cool, silhouette, like you're saying, form, but I can get trapped in there so easily because I'm like, oh, what I have is it has such an essence to it and a good form, and I don't want to screw up what I have, and so I'll just keep noodling at it. I'll keep just refining that and not just moving on to the next stage. It's very easy to do. I do that even when I'm working digitally, though, I find, but that's probably, so it's just a really bad habit that I've developed. But, I always push over eventually. Excuse me.
Yeah, I do. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I do that a lot as well.
Mm-hmm.
On one stage, just keep picking at it until it's either I get bored or I muck it up entirely. But what I've started doing is doing batches, so I have like 5 on the go.
Oh, yeah.
I've noodled a bit on each one. I've got bored of it, so I can go around to the start and then start something new and sort of force myself to do it.
That's a really good a good tip and point, because a lot of the times it is that you just can't break out of whatever cycle you are on the one, and just setting it aside for that bit is a lot of times all you need. It's a good idea. Adriano has a keyboard now. Oh, he's already in bed in Brazil. Yeah, that's pretty late. Well, thanks for watching, man. Appreciate it. All right.
I must say that, for any digital sculptors out there, trying to mimic traditional, pitfalls of traditional, as in like not using undo and trying to sculpt your way out of something you've sculpted your way into that you don't like anymore, and sculpting asymmetrically rather than using mirror. He says, as he's actually using mirror right now, but you know what I mean in general. I'm finding all of those, overall, have really helped. They're just really liberating as well. I think you start to feel like a lot different about the sculpt. If you feel like there's no real wrong things, you might just do something you just don't like, but you've got the confidence to try and get it out. And like you say, you just work at it until you either become accustomed to it and go, yeah, I kind of like that, or it just turns out kind of nice anyway.
Mm-hmm. Because you've worked very hard to not be kind of trapped in the technical sphere of it as much, and approach of it more. I mean, you have the bonuses. Yeah.
I'm scared of getting getting to look like everything being computer generated.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's so much more beauty in a line when it's hand drawn, because there's all the little imperfections in it, and you feel like connection with the artist, and you know that it's all make believe and we're all pretending together. Rather than trying to tell someone this is the way life is, this is a straight line. It's really philosophical, but I look like a dinosaur. That's not good.
I'm going to have to do some major smoothing on this thing. It's okay. Ninja Racer. Do you find that you change the sculpt's design as you come up with new ideas while working on it? That is the main reason that I almost always sculpt with reference or do a concept first, because it's not that I change it so much, but it's that I don't know where I'm going, and I find that I kind of dawdle on spots a lot more. And so maybe in some ways I am changing it, and that's, it makes it take the sculpt take even longer. And some people like to sketch in clay and just knock out, come up with ideas, and they can do that, but that doesn't work for me so well. I prefer to kind of have everything worked out and nailed down ahead of time, because it's just a lot quicker for me to do it that way. And when I'm ready to sculpt, I don't want to have to be making those hard design decisions. I want to be thinking about how best to render the effect in clay or whatever pixels if you're doing that. Need bigger tools. Here we go. Adriano's got a question. Do you think about create stories and sculpt characters of these stories and assemble the work with illustrations, figures, and stories? do I have some already? I usually do have some idea of the story of the character in mind, and that can really help develop, little details and things like that you want to add on to your character. And I'm trying to do that more with where I'm working on the illustrations as well, but my strengths really are with the sculpture, so that's usually where I focus with that sort of stuff. But it can be very helpful to keep the kind of story of a character in mind when you're sculpting or drawing. One thing I really like about these large figures, though, is that you can just use your hands on them for so much of it. Rusted Beetle says, do you have a preferred development process order for a figure? Torso, then limbs, then clothes, and accessories. Yeah, I definitely do. When I'm starting to bulk up the body, I will I'll start by, usually I get a bit of a chunk of material kind of on the torso, but then I start to focus quite a lot on the legs, and kind of working that in, because really the main element of your character, you want to get a nice flowing arc, and a lot of that will come from how the legs are positioned on the ground and up through the body. The arms can be a continuation of that, but I found that if you can really tackle and nail those elements, then that can really help continue to inform the pose and everything from there. And so I'll work all that up and then add arms and the head. And it's all pretty rough, but then I try and get it all nice and tight. You don't have to get it all perfectly smooth if you're going to have clothes or other objects on it, but you want to make sure that the kind of the form is there. And then I'll start adding on clothes and trinkets, and that can vary a lot depending on what you're doing. But a lot of times, for instance, if this guy, he's got a tunic, I'm working on the tunic now after I bulked up his main form. And you basically work from, skin out. So you've got, your clothes, and you put on belts. If you had maybe some greaves, you could sculpt on the armor there, pauldrons, things like that. And then weapons, I'll try and equipment, you try and work that in when you can. It's not at the very end. Sometimes it is, but I'll a lot of times try and get it in there midway at least, just so that I have it on the piece, so that again it can inform what is going around everywhere else. If it's going to cover an area, you don't have to spend time sculpting it. Or if you need to have it, if this guy was having a big heavy sword, you would want to make sure that the arm looked like it was carrying that weight appropriately, stuff like that. Yeah, currently on this big guy, this is super sculpy firm. I usually sculpt with Fimo. I really like that for my miniatures, but with a big figure like this, I can get this whole box for like 10 or 12 bucks, I think. And it'll be more than enough to finish this miniature, or whatever this is, statue, figurine. What is this? I don't know. Not a miniature, I guess. Hey, that's good. You can work with that. I mean, at least practice. Is it a specific kind of oven baked clay that you have? I first started sculpting with that, whatever, kind of multicolored kid clay that you couldn't even bake. And so that was always fun, trying to keep it pristine and not crushed. Because, of course, you know, I wanted my masterpiece to survive, but not. I'm sure it's destroyed now, but not a lot you can do there. Ah, Walmart. Nice. Yeah, well, head over to Hobby Lobby. You can get a block of this, like I said, for I think it's like 10 or 15 bucks. But if you, or Michael's, and if you can get the, that's in America at least, they almost always have a 40% off one item coupon. No problem, Servin. I like doing these streams. It's fun to sculpt with other sculptors too. But yeah, Super Sculpting Firm really does work well with miniatures too. It actually doesn't feel that much different than Fimo to me, but it's good to experiment. But if you find something that you can work very well with, it's definitely worth taking the time to kind of master that and not just constantly jump around. Because it's very easy to fall into the trap of, well, if I only used this material, or then I'd be able to do it. But most of the time, it just means there's a little bit, I think, that goes into it that has to do with what feels right to your temperament and kind of the hand that you work with the clay or putty. But once you kind of find that, a lot of it's just the time, putting in the time to really learn and become familiar with it. I'm liking the way this is starting to look. Servant says he's recently gotten into minis and it's super tricky, but found it easy for me to make a skeleton out of sculpting epoxy, and then on top made the muscles with Sculpey Firm, and it worked out. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that's a great way to start, because you can start to build up the form. And you don't even have to, I mean, it can be helpful to try and render the skeleton very accurately, but you can even suggesting it, you know, doing kind of simple shapes that represent and look like the bones as you move farther along can be a good way to kind of get things set up. You can take little shortcuts the more like that, the more you sculpt, where you might want the bones, but you don't have to do the entire thing.
I still tend to sculpt musculature before I put clothes on.
Yep, I hear you. I do the same thing. The thing I'm always fighting is trying not to smooth it super, super nice, because I don't know. I like doing that, but it takes time. So if you can get it on there in shape but not have to make it all super pristine, that can save time. But yeah, I find it very helpful too. Are you doing polyclay, Kevin, or are you doing
green stuff?
Green stuff, yeah.
I like the ability that I don't have to keep something in a jar that one of my kids can get to.
Yep.
I can put it in a box and I don't have to worry about cats or kids.
Yeah, nothing quite as durable as a epoxy putty miniature, that's for sure. Okay, Buzzard asks, what kind of wire am I using? I've got a base sculpture out of copper wire, then wrapped in striped bead wire to fill the areas in the torso and head. Are you doing larger figures, Buzzard? That's basically what I did with this.
Did everything just freeze, or is this just me?
I think Tom's frozen.
I'm still here.
Okay. Okay.
I'm back. Hopefully it didn't crash anybody. Google signed me out.
Oh, nice.
I'm actually on here twice somehow. That's weird. Anyways, what I was going to say is this is some thick armature wire. Let's see. Is anybody hearing an echo?
Yes.
All right, I'm going to try and eject fake me, and hopefully it doesn't mess us up. Okay, there we go. Okay, so this is a thick armature wire. I can't remember the gauge, but you can get this at most craft stores. And then I left it, I didn't wrap anything on the arms. I did score it with a file to help material grab on a little better, but on the body and a little bit on the legs, I actually did wrap some wire around it. I think the stuff I was using was fluoro wire and had like some thread around it. And so what I would do is I'd wrap it on there and then I'd dab some glue, which made it nice and hard, gave it really good texture. But then on some of the thin areas where I wanted to stay just as thin as the armature, I just actually put a little green stuff on first and then put the polyclay on, and that allowed it to stick just like I would with any old miniature I'm working on. But yeah, the copper wire and everything you're saying, Buzzard, that works. That'd work well too.
I've switched over to audio wire.
Ah. With so just the exposed kind of coiled copper, whatever.
Yeah, so it's usually the ground wire. So something something like this. What I'll do is once I've got it posed, I'll get a thin bead of solder and just harden it up so I can get it nice and stiff. And then if I want to use something with the hands, you can actually uncoil these and have little fingers.
Yes, that's a really good move. I've been using that for the whole armature like that. That's a good way to build it in. Saves a lot of time when you have to have open hands and stuff. Yeah, Severin asked about my base. This, yes, it opens. It's actually a giant version of my miniature sculpting stands. So it's got a wing nut and a bolt holding it together, and then I've got these different frame pieces just to, let it stand up a little higher in case I wanted to keep a larger amount of the armature wire sticking down. I just screwed it all together. I think I only had so much wood So in order to save wood and make more of these, I didn't put feet on these sides. So it actually tips sometimes if I'm not careful, but I was being a cheapskate. Yeah, Buzzard says he's working on larger figures because he felt the smallers were a little too hard to put the details on. Yeah, that can be true. I've actually only done one large miniature. Well, that's not true. When I was at MegaCon, I did like one large one before MegaCon. I did a couple at MegaCon. But I've only ever done probably one other large sculpture like this. I did a couple other little quickie things, but only one other piece where I was actually like really trying to take it far, and I had some pretty big plans and hopes for it, and it did turn out pretty well, but not how I exactly envisioned, so I was kind of disappointed. I think I threw it away. Buzzard's been using a bench clamp. That'd be good because then it's ready to go. Even like you said, a little heavy, but some of the best sculpting tools are found sculpting tools. Just things that you find that work. We're just about to the end, so if anybody has any other last questions or comments, things, now is the time to voice them. Servan. I'm currently working on a large sculpture for the first time. It's been quite the challenge. Keeping that weight balance for all the clay was huge. Yes, I hear you. Let's see. This guy I think is, I don't even think he's 6 inches tall. Let's see. Yeah, he's going to be about 5, maybe a little under 5 when I'm finished. He's supposed to be shorter. He's supposed to be scaled with like a 6-inch tall figure, but he's shorter. Yeah, it's a big deal, you know. I'm not sure that I'd really want to work that much larger than this, because then you start to get into needing much more complicated frames that'll actually like base into the core of your miniature, like large tubes and rods sticking out of them. You can do cool stuff though. You just gotta prepare more. It's kind of nice to work in these large areas and not have to think about fitting in this tiny little detail, and and to get proportions that look a little bit more accurate, and that will work. You don't have to fudge it because it's going to be a miniature, because of the mold making process and things like that. Thanks, Rusted Beetle. Thanks for yeah. And Ninja Racer's got a question. Tom, what kind of character is your tunic guy? Does he have a backstory? Yes. So yeah, I think I said this at the beginning of the but maybe we weren't quite on. This is going to be a king. This is a figure that's inspired by one of my favorite cartoons growing up. Got me into fantasy, called Grimm's Fairy Tale Classics. And they have all these little kind of portly dopey king characters, and so I wanted to make one like that, and I figured, hey, I'll do it as a statue, you know. So I thought it would give me a chance to play with more stylistic cartooning proportions even more, and at the different size. So yeah, I'll probably end up recording him some more and talking about working on larger figures in a proper episode upcoming. So keep an eye out for that. But I wanted to work on it here in the stream just to kind of get my head into it again, because I've had it sitting on my table for a few months now. So I did not do the Behemoth for Mercs. That was Bobby Jackson. You know, big guys I did for Mercs Minis MegaCon games were the some Myth boss miniatures. So yeah. And yeah, I do have an Instagram. It's Tom Mason Sculptor. I need to start regularly posting on it again. So I'm sporadic now, but plan on doing more. So I should take a picture right after we're done hanging up the stream. I'll do that. Thanks for asking. All right, guys. Well, that's it for now. Thanks to Andrew, Kevin, and Kettle for joining us with their own sculpting adventures. And yeah, see you all next time.
Thank you very much. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Have a nice night.